So this sort of idiocy leads to the kind of policies that we have seen in the state of California, my home state. So the state of California has not suffered from a massive outbreak. The state of California has, last I checked, something like 7 deaths per 100,000 citizens in the state of California. Grand total in the state of California COVID-19 deaths, last I checked, were under 3,000 deaths statewide. We have 40 million citizens in the state of California. We have 2,770 confirmed deaths from COVID-19 in the state of California, according to sort of the numbers that Google is popping up for me here right now. Okay, so those are not massive, incredibly large numbers. Okay, those are, every death is a tragedy, every death is bad, but California is not the center of this outbreak. I guess it's up to 2,882, according to the LA Times. Okay, that's terrible. It's bad, and we should be careful when we reopen. But the state of California has basically decided that we are now engaged in a kindergarten game of one-upsmanship. And it was pretty obvious that this is how things were going to go when the lockdowns originally occurred, right? San Francisco lockdown, and then immediately thereafter, LA lockdown, and then immediately thereafter, New York lockdown. And so it's going to be the other way around, right? You're seeing one game of follow the leader when it comes to reopening. With some states saying, listen, we got to reopen or our economy is going to die. Other states are saying, listen, we're not going to be blamed, right? If you're Gavin Newsom, if you want to avoid scrutiny, what you say at this point is, we're never going to reopen, ever, right? We're not reopening until there's a vaccine. If you're J.B. Pritzker in Illinois, we're not reopening until there's a vaccine because I'm not going to be blamed for one excess death. I'm not going to be blamed for any sort of excess death. Now, here's the reality. Politicians cannot lock down this way. Americans are just not going to stand for it. And they're particularly not going to lock down in the idiotic fashion that is now being promoted by the Los Angeles state government. So California is saying, well, why don't we let people decide on a county-by-county basis? Just going to point out, when Donald Trump says that, according to the states, when he says states should decide, localism should rule, he's very bad. When Gavin Newsom says counties should decide on a county-by-county basis, then Gavin Newsom, apparently, according to the media, is very, very good. But according to County Public Health Director Barbara Ferrer, she said at Tuesday's Board of Supervisors meeting, based on her community relations degree from UC Santa Cruz, based on all the data we're looking at, we know with certainty we'll be extending health officer orders for the next 3 months. 3 months. The stay-at-home restrictions orders will be in place for 3 months. How do you even know that? How can you? We couldn't forecast this thing 2 weeks out. Ferrer said, while the safer-at-home orders will remain in place over the next few months, restrictions will be gradually relaxed under the county's existing roadmap to recovery. We're counting on the public's continued compliance with the orders to enable us to relax restrictions. They say that instead, the LA County Board of Supervisors is trying to claim that they were taken out of context because the original statement is that the stay-at-home orders would remain in place as is for 3 months. Mayor Eric Garcetti said, I think quite simply, she's saying we're not going to fully reopen Los Angeles and probably anywhere in America without any protections or any health orders in the next 3 months. I think it's going to be even longer than 3 months. Okay, that's not what the original statement was. The original statement was the stay-at-home orders are going to remain in place for 3 months until the end of July, which is patently insane. It means the end of the economy of Los Angeles, as everybody well understands. And as it turns out, the policies that are being promulgated in LA are completely idiotic. So are the policies in California for reopening counties. I'll explain the policies, okay? Here are some of the policies. The policies, according to the LA Times, at the beaches. You ready for this? How people can use the sand will look different. Face coverings will be required when not in the water. Sunbathing won't be allowed. Only active recreation, surfing, running, walking, and swimming will be permitted. Coolers, chairs, umbrellas, and any of the other accessories that typically dot the shoreline should be left at home. Do people understand, like, why masks are useful? Or why being outside is good? Or why social distancing is useful? So the idea is what? I'm going to, take my kids to the beach. I'm going to pop open that back door. I'm going to take my kids. I'm going to walk down with them to the water, throw them in the water, take them out of the water, walk back to the car, shove them inside. Like, what the hell are you talking about? This is not how beaches work. What are you talking about? And if I've got a 20-foot radius around me and I'm sitting there on the sand, explain to me how that's a bad thing. Explain. Explain to me why I need to wear a face mask when I'm socially distancing from other people. There's literally no reason. I don't need to wear a face mask if I am outside in the sun. The sun, by the way, which does kill the virus, according to best available evidence, and I'm 10 feet away from everybody else. Like, this is madness, but that's not that's not even the extent of the stupidity. So according to Gavin Newsom's standards, there are 2 criteria as to which counties can move into reopening phases. Whether deaths have stopped completely in the last 14 days from COVID-19, and whether there is no more than 1 case per 10,000 residents in that same time period. Most of California failed that test. In fact, 95% of Californians live in counties that don't meet that standard, the Times analysis found. Not a single county in Southern California nor the San Francisco Bay Area met the criteria. Deaths have stopped for 14 days. Deaths have stopped for 14 days. Okay, let me just ask a quick question. Has anybody in California, has there been any place in California, like LA County? Let's take LA County. Would LA County have to shut down for the actual flu? Okay, this is more dangerous than the flu. This is always my stipulation because people in the media get very uptight when you mention the flu in the same sentence as COVID. So let it be known, COVID is more dangerous than the flu and more transmissible. But I'm pointing out that we are not shutting down for the flu in LA County. There has not been a week in California for 6 years where somebody did not die of the flu. Here is a chart provided to you by LA County, which shows that it turns out people die of the flu every single week, every week, from 2014 to present. Right? This is pneumonia and influenza as a percent of all deaths, LA County 2013 and 2014 to 2019, 2020. So what the hell are you talking about? There won't be a death for 40. You know how many people live in LA County? There are 10 million people in LA County. So you're telling me that until there's not one COVID-19 death in all of LA County, so I guess like in 100 years, when several generations of Los Angelinos have died, then I guess we can reopen according to these standards. This is just madness. It's complete and utter insanity. Meanwhile, California State University is going to teach remotely in the fall. They're not going to let students go back to school. Why? Well, they can't explain it because the reality is that young people are not in particularly terrible shape. In fact, young people are in particularly good shape. If you're vulnerable, you should stay off campus. And Mitch Daniels, who's the president over at Purdue, the dean over at Purdue, he said we're going to reopen and we're going to take precautions for people who are vulnerable. This would be the rational solution, but we cannot pursue rationality in any way. It's lockdown infinity. Lockdown and then lockdown infinity plus one. That's the way this is going to work for a lot of politicians. When the media set up a standard such that reopening is considered you greenlighting death, it is not a shock that politicians respond to that political incentive by saying, okay, let's lock down forever. And as we'll see, that's exactly what Joe Biden is doing. The Democrats are naturally glomming onto the media calculus here. The Democrats continue to push lockdowns that move beyond the possibility of any sort of real calibrated response. It's not as though they've set a timeline that's in any way realistic. Again, that LA County timeline is insane. 14 days with no deaths from COVID-19. How about 14 days with no deaths from a car accident before we can get back on the roads? Like that's nuts. It's just nuts. Okay, but you have Eric Garcetti saying Americans want us to get it right. Yes, we do. You know what getting it right looks like? Allowing people back. Like there will not be a functioning economy in the city of Los Angeles. And if you think that all you're going to do is just tax the rich people in LA, guess what rich people have the capacity to do? Move, to leave. They're the only people in LA who have the capacity to leave. Now here's Mayor Garcetti.
Most Americans want us to get it right. You look at polls across the country, certainly here in Los Angeles, it's go slow, don't go fast, and get it right so we don't have to retreat. So she wanted to make sure that I communicated, and what she was communicating is that we still need to have a public health order because there are some populations who will need to stay at home. People need to know whenever possible it is safer to stay at home. So if you can telecommute, et cetera, and there's no radical changes in the next week coming.
Okay, so again, when he says that people want to go slow, nobody is defining these terms. Go slow. Nobody is defining what exactly that looks like. All the polls are extraordinarily vague about which exact policies people approve of. People are basically on board with the masking. People are basically on board with the social distancing. But very few people are on board with the let's just stay in lockdown until the end of time. Did you know that every like on this video creates one additional leftist tier? Don't ask me why. That's called science. To take advantage of this amazing opportunity, hit the like button.